Like I said, DevOps is a philosophy and it is implemented using a lot of tools. So these are the stages that are there for DevOps. So that is planning, building, testing, deploying, operations, and observability. So what are the tools that are actually used to implement this DevOps toolkit? So let's start with planning. So we'll leave out Discover for now because Discover is a new concept and that actually does not have a lot of tools. So we'll start with planning. So when you want to plan out a lot of features, when you want to figure out that, we have a host of 15 different features that we want to implement, what exactly is it that's actually important for the users? That is something that is done during the planning stage. Planning is done using tools like Jira, Jira. So those of you who are not aware of what Jira is, please do Google out. For those of you who are in college, you must have heard of this term in your software engineering courses. Jira allows you to track your features, your issues, your backlogs, your stories. That means that any feature that needs to be implemented goes off as a story and you actually implement it. After planning comes the build stage, wherein you actually write your code and you build it. So why do I keep saying that you need to build your code? So let's say if you write a React application, then it works on your machine on localhost 3000. You cannot exactly run that same application on localhost 3000 out to a production user. It needs to be made into a build. A production build is what it is called as, so that it is important for the users. So after developing an application, you need to create a build. So if it's a JavaScript application, you do npm run build. If it is a Java application, you create a war file. It's a package. And that file is actually something that is deployed on the servers. So this code, the entire management of code of, you writing your code, you merging your code together with a lot of different developers, that is done using the version control systems, that is Git, GitHub, GitLab. All of you are very familiar with what Git is. All of you are very familiar with what GitHub is. The building stage is done using things like Gradle or Maven. So for Java applications, it is usually Gradle or Maven which are used to build your application. Okay, when after writing a code, if it is ready for production. नेक्स्ट कम्स द टेस्टिंग स्टेज. जैसे अभी आपके लोकल डब्बे पे चल रहा है, ऐसे ही आगे चल के प्रोडक्शन पे चलेगा, उसकी कोई गारंटी नहीं है. If something has to go wrong, it will go wrong. So that means that you need to exhaustively test your application using a lot of weird scenarios. So for the purposes of testing, there are a lot of tools uh, that will be used, such as Azure has a few services. There are a lot of different tools. For JavaScript applications, you have Karma and Jasmine. For Java applications, you write JUnit tests, which make sure that parts of your application, parts of your services are automated, and those automated tests are run each time you deploy code. Next comes the release phase. So when your code actually goes into deployment, so that process, that phase is done using something that is known as Jenkins or TeamCity. So Jenkins and TeamCity, these are tools that will actually take your the application code from your version control system, that is from GitHub or from GitLab, to a server, to wherever it is hosted. So let's say if it is hosted on AWS or if it's hosted on GCP. So it will make sure that that code is taken, it is compiled, it is built, and it is deployed. So that is done using Jenkins and TeamCity. So this logo of a guy that you see right now, that is the logo for Jenkins. Then you see there is this thing called Docker that is mentioned here. I'll come back to what Docker and Kubernetes are in a bit. So these are for containerized applications. I'll just come back to it in a bit. You see the logo for AWS mentioned here. So AWS, I think, is a pretty common term for a lot of you guys. AWS stands for Amazon Web Services. Similarly, we have GCP, that stands for Google Cloud Platform. Similarly, we have Azure, that is introduced by Microsoft. These are the three most common cloud provider solutions. So when we say we deploy code, what exactly happens? Your code is hosted on a server. Now that server is a machine that is not owned by you. it is owned by a company like Amazon or Google or Microsoft. They are leasing out a CPU to you कि भाई ये ले ले, run your code onto it. You run your code onto it and you pay for the services कि भाई हमने एक CPU उधार पे लिया है and we are paying $1,000 for that. So that is the sort of configuration that AWS, GCP and Azure provide to you. ठीक है? Then when it comes to operations, so Chef, Ansible, Kubernetes again, like I said, is meant for management of containerized applications. What containerization is something we'll come back to. Monitoring is done using Grafana or Greylog. So what monitoring is apart from the feedback that you receive from actual users, if you want to find out how your application is performing, big billion day sale aaya, yeah, if there is a sale on Nika where you want to purchase a certain brand of a face serum, or if you want to purchase a lipstick, during those situations, how exactly is your application performing? That is something that is tracked using Grafana, Prometheus, Greylog. Again, I'll be showing you screenshots of all of these so that you actually have an idea of what these applications are. And then once this monitoring is complete, you get your findings out of these that so and so worked, so and so did not work. कि जब बिग बिलियन डे आया था तो रात के 8 बजे थे, सब लोग आईफोन 14 के पीछे भागे थे, तो दैट मीन्स तब एप्लीकेशन जल के राख हो गया था. That is the feedback that you get, and that's when you go back to the drawing board and you start planning all over again. So this is that entire DevOps life cycle. So I hope I am able to convey the point here that it's not about two distinct, disjoint things. Everything works in a loop. That you start planning, you write the code, you build it, you deploy it, then you monitor it, you observe it, and then again, based on those observations, you come back and start deploying again. And this is a process that's going to work throughout the life cycle of the application. So quick word on containerization and cloud, because these two are rather important and some of the most common areas where you can focus on. Large applications have a lot of moving parts. So for instance, if you think of an application that is known as Amazon, so it has a lot of moving features. There is this whole payments feature, there's this the whole search feature. There are a lot of different aspects inside the Amazon application that are entirely disjoint from each other, and it is impossible for one single code base or one single set to hold all of this complex logic together. Amazon has thousands of developers. So to make sure that all of these things are disjoint, what we do is we containerize our applications. This application is broken down into various silos. Each of those silos is packaged with an environment that is needed for its functioning. So this is a very complex, very detailed terminology. So you can of course Google about it later. But for the concept of containerization, what we use is Docker and Kubernetes. So this DevOps written here is a typo. It actually should be Docker. So Docker and Kubernetes, these are used for container management. And what a container means, that it is a part of the application that is isolated. And similarly, what cloud is that cloud is just someone else's computer. That's all you need to think about for as a beginner. Cloud is not Badal. Cloud is not Hava. Cloud is not water vapor. Cloud is someone else's computer that you are leasing out. It is a computer with very fast RAM, very high capabilities. उधर ठंडा ठंडा AC चलता है. That means that you do not have to worry about your monitor burning down each time. So that someone else's monitor is what you lease out. आप उसको भाड़े पे लेते हो. And who actually provides these services? Tools like AWS, GCP or Azure.